Na zdrowie, comrades, and welcome to today's discussion on Jews in the Soviet Union. This again is not covering either Jewish leaders in Soviet Union or Soviet Union's reaction to the state of Israel. This is just Jews as general practice in the Soviet Union from the Soviet Russia in 1917 to the death of Stalin in 1953. Now, to start this off, the Soviet Union is going to be against all religion because communism, for the most part, and in the traditional sense, is against organized religion. Marx famously said that religion is an opium for the masses. And Lenin, the creator of Soviet Russia and the Soviet Union, said religion is an organ of bourgeois reaction. Now, during the early part of the Soviet Union, Jews had it pretty good. Lenin had spoke out against anti-Semitism and denounced the pogroms, which were stopped under him. There was a Yiddish theater in Moscow. Synagogues' property was seized for the most part, as it was done with all other religions, but the ones that were allowed to remain were protected. And traditional Jewish councils were created. Now, this was very good for the Jews at the time, and what was even better was the new economic policy. It focused a lot on trades, which was primarily a Jewish field due to them not being able to own land. In this early stage, there was works for a Jewish state. Zionism had been around since the late 1800s, but in the Soviet Union, a new form of Zionism was creating, one that wanted a Jewish state inside of the Soviet state. To counter this in the end, they came up with a solution: the Jewish Autonomous Oblast. It was first state farms set up in different areas. It was primarily set in Crimea, but then moved to the very far east, which is where it is still today. The location is a little bit confusing because there weren't many Jews there, and most likely the decision was just they wanted to populate the eastern area out of fear it might be lost to places like Japan, who had earlier invaded Soviet Russia during the Allied invasion in the Russian Civil War. Sorry, comrades, for very brief technical difficulties. KGB wasn't quite happy with my forgetting of how Stalin was actually the one to help make JAO grow, the Jewish Autonomous Oblast. And it's true, despite Stalin having not the best impression with the Jews, he actually did help them here. In fact, it was during when he consolidated power that he helped the most. Many early attempts at the JOA failed because it's the east of Russia, and that's a very hard place, it's a very harsh climate, and the harvest failed. In the 1930s, it's when it started to grow. The area was expanded. They were actually able to start getting, food there. Jewish schools were open, and it was aggressively advertised, not even just in the Soviet Union, but elsewhere. Many Jews from the U.S. moved to it, and by many, I mean many proportional to those that actually moved. Not a lot of U.S. citizens moved to the Soviet Union, mostly because it was, illegal at the time. The 1940s is where the Oblast would peak. The 1940s saw the Holocaust, so there was already a loss of Jews there. And Stalin would show his more anti-Semitic side and start pogroms, though not called pogroms, against the Jews during this time. Stalin is not a fan of the Jews. In fact, one of the quotes from his book on the national question is concerning the Jews. They are not a living and active nation, but something mystical, intangible, and supernatural. For I repeat, what sort of nation, for instance, is a Jewish nation which consists of Georgian, Dagestan, Russian, American, and other Jews, the members of which do not understand each other, since they speak different languages, inhabit different parts of the globe, will never see each other, and will never act together, whether in times of peace or in times of war. He actually dedicates an entire chapter of his book on the national question concerning with Marxism, just on the Jewish bond. He also was personally related to some Jews. He had 4 kids between his 2 wives, and his daughter Svetlana actually early on wanted to marry Alexei Kapler, a famous Jew in the movie industry. She couldn't, she was barred by her father, and Alexei was sent to a gulag, though he would later come back. Though Svetlana later married a different Jew. His son Yaakov married a Jewish ballerina, Nutzer. He really wasn't in connection with his father a lot. He became a soldier and was captured and sent to a concentration camp. The famous story goes where Stalin is asked to trade for his son. He doesn't, and his son is killed. Though Yaakov's wife is sent to a gulag, and her kids and Yaakov's kids are completely lied to about their father and mother. So along with this, he had a long list of allies who were Jewish. First, there was Zinoviev and Kamenev, who we talked about earlier. But there were also... One of his main Jewish allies was Lazar Kagnovich. There's not much to say about him other than what he did, but that isn't really pertaining to this. Though also to note, it is rumored, because of course no one would go on the official record, that Stalin had many affairs with Jewish people, though also non-Jews. Stalin early on mandated that anti-Semitism to be considered a crime. I'm not sure how much this was enforced, there's not a lot of records on it. Though, of course, it was, you can't be anti-Semitic. It didn't mean you can't single out Jews for stuff, and Stalin definitely did. We get to the Molotov-Ribbentrop back with this. As many people know, the Molotov-Ribbentrop was just splitting up Eastern Europe between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. And when he signed this, he increased anti-Semitism. He kicked a lot of Jews out of governmental positions to not anger Nazi Germany, and he also had a lot of anti-Semitism left over from Trotsky. In fact, if you wanted to charge a Jew with a crime, you would call him a Trotskyist. Or if you wanted to charge anyone, you would just call them a Trotskyist. Interesting to note, when Stalin got his of Poland, he started forcibly moving or deporting people to the Jewish Autonomous Oblast right before World War II. Now, there's not much to say about Stalin during World War II, but we can really start to see a few things. First, you have the Jewish Anti-Fascist Committee. It started up in 1942 after the German invasion. It was sent around pretty much to say, we're Jews and we support the Soviet Union. You should support the Soviet Union too. They advocated extending Lend-Lease, and they met with many prominent Jews in America and England. Along with that, Stalin helped fund partisan groups, which were made up a lot of Jews. In fact, one of the most famous partisan groups, though not regarding Stalin, was Tito's partisans, who were made up of some concentration camp escapees. Now, the main thing that is known for this time is how was the Holocaust reported in the Soviet Union. And there were many changes to official ways. First, all mention of the Jews specifically being targeted was left out. There are many reasons for this, and we don't have an exact answer, but if I may, go through some of them. First, and most likely, is Stalin wanted to portray the Nazis coming after any Soviet citizen as to make sure that everyone was feeling the pressure and would do the most to fight. That's why he would say Soviet citizens and not specifically Soviet Jews. Another way would be possibly to include the Jews and want to show that the Soviet Union is one homogeneous whole. We are one. If they hurt one of us, they hurt all of us. It's a lot similar to the last one. Another reason would possibly be he didn't have any sympathy for the Jews. He didn't want to tell them, oh, the Nazis are coming after you. Run away. Don't go to the factories. Don't sign up for my armies. Run away. I mean, that's definitely what would happen if they knew what was happening. Now, could it be a combination of all of this? Definitely. And also, Stalin wasn't actually personally consulted when changing these things. As far as we know, they were orders just sent down from Pravda. But in the end, we know how World War II ends. The USSR wins, Nazi Germany falls. And now Stalin has a bunch more Jews who have been liberated. Many of them want to leave to go to different countries or to the British Mandate of Palestine. During this time, they are allowed to leave, though very soon that won't be the case. And we go into the third and final relationship of Stalin with the Jews. 1948 is where the tipping point is. This is also correlating with the formation of the State of Israel. Yiddish schools and bookstores are shut down, and a lot of them are done so violently. Members of the Jewish Anti-Fascist Committee are arrested. Well, some of them, not all. That will come later. And the council is effectively shut down. It's still running, but way more of a puppet than before. 1950s, Jews are being attacked. This is not sanctioned by the state, but they're also doing very little to stop it. And that gets us to the first of the two main nights, the Night of the Murdered Poets. This is concerning a bunch of writers, all of who are Jewish. 5 of them are members of the JF and are in leadership positions, and 13 of them are executed. Interesting to note, not a lot about the Jews is known to the Soviet public, so the judges actually start questioning them about synagogues and kosher food and Jewish law during this thing. We don't know if that is to them used as evidence against them or just general curiosity. And the last and most famous of them, yes, comrades, the darkest ever got for Jews in the Soviet Union. The premise of the doctor's plot was doctors, who are Jewish in this case, and is probably why they were singled out. It's way easier to take out a Jew than other Soviet citizens because Jews are so despised there, are accused of planning on killing many prominent Soviet leaders, Khrushchev, Malenkov, and the main one, Stalin himself. They are tortured, and in addition to this, some Jews who aren't doctors are added to the plot to add it being Zionist. After the torture and the fact they were found guilty, it is reported by Pravda as such. The majority of the participants of the terrorist group were bought by American intelligence. They were recruited by a branch office of American intelligence, the International Jewish Bourgeois Nationalist Organization called JOINT. The filthy face of this Zionist spy organization, covering up their vicious actions under the mask of charity, is now completely revealed. Unmasking the gang of poisoner doctors struck a blow against the International Jewish Zionist Organization. Now all can see what sort of philanthropists and friends of peace hid beneath the signboard of JOINT. Other participants in the terrorist group, Vindoyev, Kogan, Erdgov, were discovered, and has been presently determined to have been long-time agents of English intelligence, serving it for many years, carrying out its most criminal, sordid task. The bigwigs of the USA and their English junior partners know that to achieve domination over other nations by peaceful means is impossible. Feverishly preparing for a new world war, they energetically sent spies inside the USSR, the People's Democratic countries. They attempt to accomplish what the Hitlerites could not do, to create a USSR in their own subversive fifth column. Stalin demands that prominent Jews write a letter denouncing those in the doctor's plot. We don't know if they did or didn't. All we know is no letter has appeared yet. After Stalin's death on March 5, 1953, the charges were dropped. Interesting to note, a lot of the doctors who have now been arrested would probably have been able to save Stalin's life. Instead, the committee got a very bad doctor, to put it the least. And I want to end it with the secret speech. I know this is technically after Stalin's death, but it still applies to this. Khrushchev says, "This entire thing was made up." It is shocking to many people, and in the end, it doesn't make a difference in how Jews are treated in the Soviet Union.